Hello. I'm sorry I'm in the dark. I'm actually out on the football field in the middle of the island. There's not many stars out tonight because it's a bit cloudy, but
I can see one. I actually thought that there was no video because it was so dark. I thought it was just, the video function wasn't working, but now I can see a few lights.
Yeah, so the football field out here, it's probably the quietest place on the island at the moment, and we live in one room, of course, so I couldn't do it in the room.
Right. Well, let's break it down for listeners. Where does this podcast find you?
In the Maldives, so in the middle of the Indian Ocean, right on the equator.
Amazing. And there's a 12-hour time difference. So I'm in California at 8:17 right now, and you're there at 8:17 in the morning. You're there at 8:17 in the evening. So it took a little bit of work and a little bit of technology, but how amazing is it, by the way? How amazing is technology considering the circumstances that brought us together?
Absolutely. My mom and, of course, my husband's parents are thrilled to bits that we're able to communicate so easy, even being halfway around the world. We're literally on the other side of the world from where you are. Like,
for sure.
When I moved over here, my mom was like, really? As far away as you can possibly get from me? What are you trying to tell me?
Totally. But also the fact that, I'm talking about it talking about you essentially on a podcast completely with a stranger, and then word finds its way back to you almost within 24 hours, I feel. Tell me how you found the podcast.
Yeah. So we have a home in New Zealand, and we have some, a community of friends there. And the funny part about that is the guy who actually sent us the link to the podcast is someone who I knew from when I lived in San Diego, and he ended up marrying a Kiwi and moving to New Zealand. And then he lived like far away from where we lived in Raglan. And then they ended up moving to Raglan and buying a house, and we reconnected again last year. So quite funny. It all comes full circle, doesn't it?
It's totally unreal. And that actually is a perfect segue into kind of your backstory. I would love to hear, well, let's start with actually, what is your official, what's your job title?
Well, I'm more of just a mom at the moment.
Okay.
Because my husband, when we ended up having our son Curran, my husband took on kind of most of the responsibility for the actual job. But basically, we manage the surf program at a resort in the Maldives called Fushi. It's an island that has the wave Lois in front of it, and it's the left-hand wave, and there's another wave called Ninjas across the channel, and a couple waves just 20 minutes north, and a few waves 20 minutes south. So we're kind of in the middle of the key surf area in the Maldives.
Got it. And what does running the surf program consist of?
So we have actually a limited number of surf guests that's allowed to be at the resort at any one time, and they do that so that the resort doesn't get so crowded with surfers, and the wave stays fairly uncrowded and kind of fun for everybody. They did this maybe 5 or 6 years back. They changed it because prior to that, sometimes there were like 120 surfers on the island. It was just chaos. And it got to the point where so many people were complaining about the crowds, and there's only a few boats that went in the morning and a few went in the afternoon, and everyone who wanted to go on the boat sometimes weren't able to go, and surfers were getting frustrated. So they finally said, okay, we're limiting the numbers so that everyone can come on their holiday and have a great time and know they're going to have a great time, and it won't be so crowded, and it's worked out really well. So when the surfers come in, we basically just introduce them to the waves. We introduce them to the program. We let them know when the boats are going to be going to other waves, tell them the dangers, and there's not many in the Maldives, actually, to be honest. Sometimes we get some pretty bad storms that come in, and it can be whiteout. There's actually a couple surfers Japanese surfers who got lost at sea about 12 years ago.
Wow.
During a storm. So that's probably the biggest thing that we kind of warn people about. These two surfers, they were surfing up at Cokes, and I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but they were surfing up at Cokes, and their boat captain told them to come in, and they were like, one more wave, and then the storm just got really bad, and it went full whiteout, and the currents here in the Maldives can get so bad that you can't even paddle against them. And a
Mm.
current had come up and took these guys out to sea, and then it went dark and they just were never found.
Oh my gosh.
So,
Always
so
listen to
I
your
always
boat
tell,
captain.
yeah, well, I always tell people, I say, look, as long as you can see land, you can keep surfing. But the minute it becomes hard to see land, you either get to the boat or, paddle into the land. So that's probably the biggest danger here. And then we have sea urchins, but they're not so bad.
Got it.
That's
Well,
about it.
how did you land such a dream job? I would imagine there's endless number of people vying for that type of a position.
Yeah, you would think so. There's a lot of people who talk about it. There are very few people who actually go through with it and jump on it. Because at the end of the day, you have to give up so much to do this, and a lot of people aren't willing to do that. But I actually was traveling with a friend of mine who we went to an island called Sumba in Indonesia. And while we were there, we were at a resort called Nihiwatu, and the couple that was doing the surf guiding and the yoga at that resort, they were leaving, and then the manager of the resort was leaving, and they kind of didn't have anyone. And I was talking to the manager, and I said, hey, if you ever needed another Pilates instructor or someone to help out with surfing, I put my hand up, kind of laughing about it. And he was like, well, actually, we really do. We really need someone bad to cover the low season here. And he goes, are you serious? And I said, well, yeah. And he goes, okay, don't tell me right now. He said, you need to sleep on it, think about it for a night, and tell me what you think tomorrow morning. So I went back to my room and I immediately emailed my friend Dan, who happened to be couch surfing on my couch in Solana Beach at the time. And I said, hey, how would you like to be subletting my apartment? He emailed me back straight away and said, oh my gosh, yes, please. I love your apartment. I lived above a sushi restaurant in Solana Beach that was walking distance to the wave out the front there. Okay. So he was frothing and he was like, you can leave all your stuff. I'll take care of your car. Don't worry about it. And so I kind of took that as a sign. And then I actually told my mom, I said, what do you think about it? And she's like, wow, it sounds like something you've always wanted to do. And so I took that as another sign. And so the next morning I went and said, hey, yeah, I want to take the job. And
how old were you at the time?
I had just turned 30.
Okay.
So, and that was in 2008. Yeah.
Can I ask what circumstances in your life at that time allowed you to be traveling with kind of no return ticket?
Well, I did. I was only planning on being in Indonesia for 3 weeks.
Gotcha.
So it was the woman who actually I went to Indonesia with. She had a couple of kids, and she used to come in the sushi restaurant that I worked at a lot, and really, really solid lady. And she, I had taught her kids how to surf, and like kind of hung out with them for a summer while she was busy. And she was like, hey, I'm going to Indonesia with my boyfriend and some of his friends, and I don't want to be the only girl. Do you want to come with me? All expenses paid. And I was kind of like, oh no, I really don't want to be your boyfriend's friend's like hookup. I'm not into that.
Right.
And and she's like, no, I swear it's not like that. Like, you'll have your own room the whole time. Like, it won't be like that at all. Like, I really want someone that, you surf, they surf, and I want someone that can kind of get along with everyone, and I don't want to be the only girl. And so yeah, I said, why not? And and then it led to this, and well, it led to the job there. And then as I was working there, a couple weeks into it, a guy came who owns a company called Tropic Surf. His name is Ross Phillips. Really solid guy. And he hung out with me for the week while they were, having their holiday. And at the end of the week, he was like, hey, how would you like to be a surf guide in the Maldives? And I was like, what did you say? He said, how would you like to be a surf guide in the Maldives? And I just found it really odd because 3 years earlier, I had gone to the Maldives with my friend Jess and some friends. And I turned to my friend Jess and said to her, I said, oh my gosh, this would be my dream job to be a surf guide in the Maldives. So 3 years later, when someone comes up to you and offers you that, you kind of have to say yes.
Absolutely, yeah. What do you, do you think about that? I think about like cosmic, the way that the universe works at times, and like setting intention and making yourself certainly open to even receiving those sort of things. Do you think that there was something at play there?
Absolutely, 100%. So I think that when it comes to intention and kind of creating your own reality or what you want, I think so often that opportunities come to people and either they don't see them because they want it, but they're scared, or they have too much going on in their life and they're just like, no, 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 no. And again, I think it all reverts back to fear. Like too many people are kind of scared to take that jump, right?
Yeah, totally.
But, I was 30, I didn't have a boyfriend or a husband, and, I worked at a sushi restaurant. I had my degree to teach children, and I was a Pilates certified instructor. And I was kind of in that like limbo state in my life. And when that all happened and I kind of like jumped at the chance, and then someone comes up to me and basically offers me my dream job, I was just like, oh, it's meant to be.
Well,
and
let me take you back to that moment where you just said, working in a sushi restaurant when you're 30 in Solana. What life had you designed for yourself at that point, and where did you think that you would be, in 5 or 10 years?
Good question. I didn't know. I was
Okay.
really in a place of, I don't know where I'm going in my life. I thought, when you grow up, you kind of have this idea of what you're going to do in life. And I thought by 30, I was going to be married with 2 kids and a white picket fence,
In San Diego?
So, just wherever I was. I grew up in Orange County.
Okay.
I moved to San Diego in 99 when I went to university at San Diego State. So I think surfing changed the trajectory of my life in a big way, because I didn't start surfing until I was a bit, older. It was 99 when I started surfing.
Okay.
I was like, let's see, almost 21. Yeah. So yeah, that kind of changed everything, because I just completely fell in love with surfing, and I didn't really know where I was going to go with it. And I tried my hand at teaching, and I wasn't super keen with teaching or how schools actually, that's a whole nother subject. And actually, we're going to be unschooling our child Curran. So that's a whole nother subject altogether. But yeah, I wasn't super keen on teaching or the way that schools were run. And so then I got my Pilates certification, which I had loved. And I just finished the certification when I went to Zumba. So that kind of changed everything then, because I was still quite open. And, at the sushi restaurant, you can kind of, you can take it or leave it, right?
Yeah.
It's not something that you're like, oh, it's going to be my lifelong career.
No, but it's interesting. You can get lulled into a false sense of comfort. You're living in Solana Beach, which is great. There's a lot of comfort and security in coastal Southern California. You can make enough money to live, never get rich, or maybe not even own property, but you live a good life, even as a renter in Southern California,
You do. Yeah. It's actually easy to get very complacent in that regard.
But right. I think something that you said about schooling too kind of sparked a thought is a lot of the lies that we bought into, our generation bought into, like we're now realizing are not panning out the way that we were sold them. Like my parents, harped on going to college. When you go to college, you'll get a career working for a company that'll take care of you until the end of your life, and you'll have a pension and all that. Well, there's no more pensions. The companies that you would go work for, a lot of them went bankrupt. A lot of them are going to replace older, high-paid employees with brand new graduates coming out of who knows where, willing to work for nothing because they have so much student debt. And the school systems are broken. Like you said, I know so many teachers, friends of mine who went to school to teach, who are so disillusioned once they get into that job market that you almost have to start designing a brand new way of life. And clearly you picked a really kind of dream scenario, but I think a lot of people, like you said, there's a fear holding them back. There's a certain complacency. And also there's not a lot of examples like yourself that we have to look at of somebody who did it successfully. So we kind of look around and we just go, oh, I guess living in Irvine is normal, where there's the same exact cookie cutter houses and restaurant options and all that sort of stuff. You're
right. Yeah, exactly. And I I think that surfers have kind of that wanderlust that never leaves, and even surfers who do have the conventional life are still kind of always vying for, oh, when am I going to go on my next trip? When am I,
Totally.
or even in the local area, like where can I find a different wave, a better wave,
Totally.
So I think that we have a bit of an advantage in that, where we do take more risks as surfers in general.
Right. Well, let's talk about some of the things that you've had to sacrifice. Obviously, it sounds like you're living a really idyllic life, and certainly there's been compromises that you've made. What have been the biggest challenges and discomforts for you?
Well, when I first got to Sumba, it was really difficult because I was the only Western worker there, literally the only Western worker there. And it was low season, so there weren't many guests. And I was confronted with a lot. Like, you really have to face yourself, and you have to, it's a very confronting place to be in, because you're in the middle of nowhere on this island. I mean, Sumba is a really big island, bigger than Bali, southeast of Bali. And it's still very primitive. Like, they only stopped headhunting like 25 years ago. The Indonesian government has had to like send in the Indonesian army to stop feuds that were going on from these villages, because they were just, attacking each other and killing each other. And so it is a place that's still very raw. I would almost call it the Wild West of Indonesia. And when you're somewhere that's so kind of raw and unfettered, it's like everything becomes so much more real, and you're kind of faced with yourself and your life and how you were raised. And oh my gosh, like it's just a completely different world. So the guy that hired me had said, and I think I told you this, that, hey, this is one of those places where you're either going to face all your demons and come out going, oh my gosh, this is the life for me, I never want to leave, or you're going to run home with your tail between your legs and never look back, because it is so raw and confronting, and you do have to kind of face yourself and all of your demons. And so that definitely happened.
In what ways?
So you just, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's basically like imagine therapy with a therapist that isn't there. And you just have to feel through everything, and you kind of go back and face everything that all of the trauma in your life, all of the bad decisions, everything just comes so clear when you're not surrounded by distraction.
Yeah.
And so a lot of healing and a lot of crying took place on a little rock that was kind of in the middle. Sorry?
I was just going to say, were you experimenting with meditation or any other practices throughout that time?
No, not really. I had this book called The Way to Love. I can't remember who the author was, but it was just a book of quotes that just was very kind of philosophical. And I don't know, it just took me to a different place. And I wasn't really doing a lot of meditation or anything like that, but just reflecting back, I guess.
In isolation, alone.
Yeah, in isolation with no one else to really talk to. Because I was the only Western worker there. There was a guy who was a PhD malaria doctor that would come for like a week at a time every 2 or 3 months or so. He was a nice guy. I learned a lot about malaria from him, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
Like if you took everyone off of an island for 3 weeks, which is a mosquito's life cycle, and brought everyone back on the island and nobody had malaria, you'd eradicate it from the island.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating.
Yeah, so you only get malaria because a mosquito bites somebody else who has it and then bites you.
Yep.
So
makes perfect sense.
Confronting, raw, real. It was really good. It was very healing. And when I got offered the job to work in the Maldives, I was kind of like, I think I'm meant to do this. And then after my time in Sumba, I went back home to San Diego, and I kind of sold everything, my car and everything.
Okay.
And then flew to Australia and got my like surf coaching certification and first aid certification, and then ended up at the Four Seasons in the Maldives.
Okay. Amazing. It sounds like the life that you were living in San Diego prior to going to Indonesia, you didn't have a lot of direction, but whatever that experience was in Sumba really gave you passion and drive.
Yeah, it allowed me the opportunity to let go, because in California, it's so easy to hang on to all of your kind of baggage that you have, because you never really face it, and you just carry it around with you from day to day, and use the distractions around you to not deal with it.
Yeah.
So kind of it opened me up. It allowed me to open up, and then it was pretty rad, because once I got the job at Four Seasons in the Maldives, pretty much a couple weeks, almost a month into my job there is when I met my husband, Richard.
I was going to ask how where he fits into this story, and who is he, and what was his background? So
it was his second year working actually on the island we're on now, on Hooter and Fushi. He's actually from England originally, and he's got, I guess, kind of a similar experience. He, spent some time in India doing yoga, and he actually did a lot of photography when he was younger, and then his house burnt down to the ground, and then he went to India, and then he got malaria that actually almost killed him, made him very, very, very sick. And once he got better from that, which took a really long time, because he went septic and he almost died.
Wow.
So once he got better from that, he was kind of like, oh, I don't care about, money or anything like that. I just want to go surf. I just want to surf and live my life, because he was very close to death.
Yeah.
And so he kind of did a lot of traveling and roaming, and then he ended up meeting up with a friend, this guy who actually was heading to New Zealand and needed somewhere to stay. And he's like, yeah, sure, come crash on my couch. He didn't know the guy. He was just someone his friend had directed him to. And the guy happened to be the surf guide here at Hooter and Fushi, and he was over, and he was like, hey, you should come and take over my job. And so he did. And so that's how he ended up here.
And is his background in photography?
Well, he did a lot of photography when he was younger, had his own darkroom, did his own developing and stuff. And this was back, before the digital age. And he actually got accepted into photography school. But then I think I'm saying this right, but I might be wrong. But his house burnt down, and then he ended up going to India and doing some yoga thing. And that kind of put him on a different path for a while. And then he kind of came full circle back to photography when we got married. We actually spent the last $6,000 we had at the time after we got married on a full camera setup. And I was like, what are we doing? We don't have this kind of money to just spend on cameras. But as it turns out, it was a good investment.
Good. Because he shoots a lot of surf photography now.
Yeah. So, he actually, one of the reasons why we invested in the camera was because he had a knee injury and he couldn't surf. So he was started to shoot photos and got really into that, and then the water photography and everything. So
so you're living, I would imagine you're interacting with a lot of people, obviously tourists that are coming through. And what was it like to meet Richard? And did you envision a life together? I mean, that kind of a marriage that you guys have made work is very different than your initial idea of marriage. When you met him, how did you feel about him? And could you envision a life together on an island, raising kids?
It didn't exactly happen like that. We met, and it was kind of a funny romance, because we worked on different islands, and as much as people think, oh my gosh, it's so lucky you're in the Maldives, there are really strict rules for staff on all the islands. So he wasn't allowed to come to my island, and I wasn't allowed to go to his island unless we booked in as guests at each other's islands. So it didn't really work out that we could just like go hang out. So what we had to do is we had to take the staff donny. A donny is a Maldivian boat, kind of a slow diesel fueled Maldivian boat. And so we had to take the staff donnies into Male where we could like hang out and have dinner. But of course we couldn't like be affectionate in Male because it's 100% Muslim and you're not allowed to show any affection in public in Male.
Oh my gosh.
So we had to go into Male, we could have dinner and hang out, and then we'd have to, run back to our donnies by the time they were leaving. Otherwise, if we missed them, we'd have to get a hotel room for the night in Male. And then back to our local islands. So it was almost like this funny kind of almost junior high camp romance,
Yeah.
where you have these curfews and these times where you have to be and you're not allowed to be doing anything, and so it was quite a funny romance, but it was cool because we really got to know each other as people. And 2 months after we met, he just pulled me aside in the water at Sultan's and he said, "I'm going to marry you in 5 months or 5 years, so it's up to you when you want to do it."
Oh my gosh.
And so he was pretty sure that he was going to marry me. And I was like, well, if I don't have a choice, I guess we should do it in 5 months because then we won't have to wait. And so that's exactly what we did. 5 months later, we got married on our porch in New Zealand. And then we got offered actually jobs at both Four Seasons for the two of us by Ross. And then also here at Huron Fushi by his boss at World Safari, Sean. And we kind of put it back and forth. The money was better at Four Seasons, but the lifestyle was better here at Huron Fushi. And so we decided to stay here to do Huron Fushi.
Got it.
And that was 11 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah. So time kind of flies, I guess.
I suppose.
And we always said, like, when we got married, we're like, okay, well, we'll do this as long as we're not loving it. Like, as long as the good days outweigh the bad days, we'll continue to do this. And yeah, and then so far it's been that. And then when we got pregnant with Curran, the general manager here at the time, Mr. Ernest, really nice guy. I was worried because no other staff here have their family here. So I didn't think they were going to be too keen on it. And we just said to him, we said, "Oh, I'm pregnant. Do you think we can have a baby on the island?" And he goes, "Why not? Big happy family." He's Sri Lankan. All the management here is Sri Lankan.
Okay.
And so yeah, it worked out. And the head office guys in Sri Lanka kind of called Rich and was like, "Oh, are you going to be okay in that room? Are you guys going to need a nanny? Like, They wanted to kind of get a feel for what we would require. And we were kind of like, no, everything can remain completely the same. And we'll just still do our job the same as we always have. And just with an added addition. And they said, okay, well, we'll see how it goes for next year. And they were totally happy with us and we were happy with it. And so we just kept going.
Good for you. It's funny that you were saying the way that the courting worked was beneficial, the junior high style recording. Because I have, like, with COVID-19 right now and everybody being in quarantine, I have some friends who are still dating and they have to take it super slow. And it's actually been beneficial for everybody, not rushing into the physical part of the relationship or just not dating the way that they had been dating for the last decade has been great for kind of fostering deeper connection with other people. So that's funny. It's a good lesson to learn from all of this.
Yeah, I think in our, fast society in this day and age, everyone's so, gung-ho on go. I didn't even know what Tinder was until, I went back to America one time and everyone's talking about Tinder and I'm like, what is Tinder?
Right.
It just kind of boggles my mind. You've gone from, dating and getting to know someone to all of a sudden swipe right, swipe left.
Yeah.
It's like dealing a deck of cards.
Totally.
So yeah, it's and I think it made a difference. Like, well, one thing I do have to say about relationships is when people ask me, oh, how is it living on this island in one room, with the same person? Because you can walk around our island in 12 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Like, the island is small. Like, the only thing that's on this island is the resort. So there's no grocery stores. There's no locals. There's no, I mean, locals that work here, but no like kind of local village or anything. It's just the resort is the island. And I always tell people, if you can do this lifestyle being married, then you can do anything, like with your partner, like if or boyfriend or whatever, or husband. It really challenges you to work through things. And also because the minute we leave our room, we're kind of on, right?
Public facing.
You can't get in a fight and walk out of the room and still be grumpy when you have guests next to you asking you how the waves are going to be. So it kind of forces you to really work things out and in a calm manner. Because also it's like, I can't sleep in another room. I can't storm off to my mom's house and stay for the night.
Totally.
You have to work through things, and it's really cool to see how, regardless of what it is, I think so many people kind of give up on relationships, one person or the other, but when two people are actually willing to just really work through anything, then it's really cool, because the minute you face those kind of deeper emotional issues, it just makes you stronger as a couple.
Yeah.
So
completely. How old is Curran?
He's 3.5 now.
What was it like having him? I mean, where is there a hospital, and what was, did you have health concerns? I'm sure your family was probably freaked out about you having him away from home.
Well, we had him in New Zealand, at our house in New Zealand.
Oh, okay.
So our home, and we tried to time it, to be honest. And when I told my mom, because my mom has been bugging us for had been bugging us for ages to have a baby. She wanted to be a grandma. And I was like, well, if we get pregnant in April, the baby will be due in January. And she was like, oh, it doesn't always happen like that, Amy. You can't just snap your fingers and get pregnant. But it did happen like that for us, thankfully. Good. And I know so many people, struggle. It's just, but yeah, we were very, very lucky to it worked out the way we wanted it to. And so we ended up, we had to actually apply in New Zealand to have Curran, because neither of us are citizens of New Zealand. Rich bought a house there 20 years ago, but he's not a citizen.
Got it.
So we had to apply to the government, and then we got a midwife, and I had international expat health insurance that covered me everywhere in the world but America, because if I wanted to include America, it was like $10,000 more a year.
Yep.
So we said, no, okay, we're not going to do anything in America. We'll do it in New Zealand. So we ended up having him in New Zealand. But if I were to have had a baby here in the Maldives, I wouldn't really worry, because the hospitals here are they're pretty good. And people have babies here all the time. In fact, they usually do C-sections here, actually. They're kind of, that's their go-to here. The Maldivian people are really, really tiny people. The girls are so tiny. And so a lot of them end up having C-sections. So.
Got it.
So yeah.
When did you bring him back to the island? How old was he?
Well, he was about 8. Well, he was 8 weeks old when we flew back from New Zealand. But when we got to Singapore, we got this notification that there was this big H1N1 flu scare in Maldives. And so I rerouted to the States for a month, and then came back when he was like 3 months old. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about raising a kid in the island lifestyle. What are the best parts about it? And then also, do you have any concerns for him about education, lack of kind of multiple inputs and influences? What are your thoughts on raising him there?
We love it. He loves it. He's this little island jungle boy. He's pretty much never worn shoes. The first time we tried to get him to wear shoes, he was 2 years old when we went to New Zealand, and he just kept taking them off. So we just, and then it was funny, because I ended up reading a article about how being barefoot up to the age of 2 is really important for children, because their vestibular sense is made in their feet, and that helps with balance and basically cognitive growth. So it's really important that children are barefoot as much as possible when they're little.
Fascinating.
And it's really funny, because Curran is he's such a I mean, he's my son, of course. I think he's wonderful, but the kid, he's just got such dexterity when it comes to like climbing, and you know, he can walk over coral, and he's really quite stable. Like he never falls, or like even when he was learning how to walk, he got up, he started walking, and he hardly ever had a fall.
Wow.
So yeah, so he loves it. He's a total water baby. He loves the ocean, and he's just gotten into fishing with my husband. Him and Rich, they go fishing every afternoon, and they love it. They catch fish, and we cook it in our rice cooker in our room, or we have it for sashimi, which is nice.
Yeah. Are there any concerns about the lifestyle that, you know, certain benefits that he won't get that, I don't know, kids raised in San Diego do get?
No. In fact, well, I don't think so personally. I think that a lot of people ask me, oh, well, what about socialization? But if you've ever talked to my son, you won't think that there's any issue with that. Yeah. Like the other day, he was teaching the head executive chef here, Roshan, how to make sauerkraut, because we've been making sauerkraut in our room, and he's been helping. And he was teaching one of the chefs how to catch a fish, and explain to him exactly how you do it, and like, you know, you have to cast your rod, and then close the bail arm, and all this kind of stuff. And he's a super social, like he talks to everyone, you know, and it doesn't matter of their age, of their race, or their ethnicity, and it's just everyone's a friend to him, and he's a super open-hearted, beautiful little boy. And it's really cool because we're so friendly to guests and to everyone, you know, that's our job, right?
Yeah.
And children just do what they see. And so Curran's just super friendly, you know? You say hi to him, he'll say hi back. I mean, he's 3. Obviously, there's some times where he's in his own head and, you know, not paying attention. But
yeah.
So as far as socialization, no, I don't have any concerns about that. And as far as like education or anything like that, I'm also not worried, because we're actually going the unschooling route. Where
so tell me what unschooling is.
So unschooling is basically it's child-led learning. So your child decides what they want to learn, and you facilitate it. Sometimes that means that they learn faster in some ways than the normal children in school, and they don't learn some things that, you know, the education system teaches. And other times they're like a little bit slower with certain things, but it all catches up in the end. So, like, for instance, recently Curran's been having fish anatomy classes. So he knows where the stomach, the intestines are. He knows what the gallbladder is. He knows how the gills work, you know, and this is his kind of very practical education. So he's learning about all the insides of a fish, but he's also completely loving it and enjoying it. And so the concept with unschooling is children learn when they're interested. And if you ever have tried to teach a child something they're not interested in, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, because there's just no learning involved.
Yeah.
So unschooling encourages intrinsic motivation for learning, and we facilitate whatever he's interested in learning about. You know, he learned how to read all of his numbers when he was like barely 2 years old, but he hasn't been super interested in his letters yet. So, you know, whatever they're interested in is what they're going to learn, and you just facilitate that. So
fascinating.
Yeah.
I think from the socialization standpoint, you guys are in a unique scenario where you have so many guests coming and going all the time that I think that's fantastic for him.
Yeah, he's around. I mean, obviously for the last few months, there's not been anyone here. So it's been quite an isolated place to be.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask that too, how COVID has affected your business and your life.
Well, yeah, it's hugely affected our business because photography and how we make money is when the guests are here. So we've not been earning anything since it's all happened, which, you know, it is what it is. But, you know, we're able to live for free. So, you know, we get food provided for us and we have a room provided for us. So We pay for our own internet and any extras that we want. Like if we want to get stuff on iHerb or whatever that we can get sent out, we can do that. So, but yeah, so we're lucky in the
well, how's the resort surviving without any guests?
Well, actually, at the moment, it's a quarantine resort. So half of the island has Maldivians from Male who are here quarantined, suspected cases of COVID or basically contact tracing COVID cases. So that's how I think the resort has been able to. It's not much because it's just something from the government. But
the government pays that expense?
That pays the expense, yeah. So at one point there was like 250 people in all the guest rooms, and what they've done is they've blocked off the staff area from the guest rooms, so there's no cross. So these people aren't allowed to basically interact with any of the staff, and vice versa. So,
do you have adequate access to disinfectants and all that sort of stuff?
Soap. Yeah, we have soap and lots of vitamin C, and we get lots of vitamin D and sunshine, and so it wasn't something that we really had huge fears about. So as far as like just in health in general, one of the things that I really got into after Curran was born was researching about orthomolecular medicine, which is basically using the nutrients that your body needs to give you optimum health. And so I learned a lot. And vitamin C is kind of one of those unsung heroes that can pretty much cure anything in the right dose. Back in the 50s, there was a doctor who cured 60 out of 60 cases of polio that came into his office with intravenous vitamin C.
Really? Intravenous?
Yes. Intravenous vitamin C.
Fascinating.
It is absolutely fascinating. And then there was a doctor in the 80s, Dr. Cathcart, that treated pretty much every viral and bacterial thing you can imagine with very, very high doses of oral and intravenous vitamin C. That's actually where my Instagram handle comes from.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I saw that. I never put two and two together, but yeah, that makes sense now. So what would your practical advice be for applying that to our lives?
So we take, Curran takes about 1,000 milligrams per year of his age. Per day. So he gets about 3,000 milligrams a day of vitamin C spread out through the day. And Rich and I take between 8 and 15,000 milligrams of C throughout the day. And pretty much since we started this program, we haven't gotten sick at all.
Do you do it in the form of juices?
No, you just get ascorbic acid, which is basically the powdered version of vitamin C. And you just mix it in water, but they also have pill forms where you can get like one kind of pill is 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, and you can just pop pills. If I wake up in the middle of the night to drink a drink of water, I'll take 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C. But the crazy part about it, and until you actually experience it, you don't believe it. But if you're starting to feel sick and you take like a loading dose of like 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C, and then take 1,000 milligrams every 15 to 20 minutes, your symptoms literally disappear. It's the craziest thing ever. Yeah.
I'm sold. I'm on it. Is there any adverse effect?
No. Well, if you take it all at once, you can get loose stools, and that's it. There's a lot of controversy of people who have kidney stones, whether it causes kidney stones or not. I'm not going to tell someone who's had kidney stones to take a ton of vitamin C, but Dr. Cathcart in the 80s treated like thousands and thousands of patients with high dosing vitamin C, and he never had one patient who got kidney stones. So, so he was kind of like, I don't really think that that's an issue, whether it's other factors or not. But most people have, zero issue with high dosing vitamin C. The key is to take it throughout the day. So
Sure.
you just don't take it all at once.
Yeah.
Unless
Okay.
you're starting to get sick, and then you can kind of take a loading dose of it and then spread the rest out through the day. But there was a story of, from Dr. Kovat, of this woman who, she had viral pneumonia, and she took 100,000 milligrams of vitamin C in 24 hours and cured her viral pneumonia.
Unbelievable.
That's 100 grams. That's like, whoa, that's insane.
Yeah,
But
this is all epic information, though. I really appreciate it.
yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, with the vitamin C, if you're starting to get sick, your body uses vitamin C to get you better, and that's why when you ingest a lot more vitamin C, you actually continue to get better, because then your body's not using the stores of vitamin C in your tissues to actually make you better.
Got it.
So,
let's talk about surfing. How often do you surf?
yeah. Well, when Richard's working, I get to surf when he has time to watch Curran. So sometimes I get to surf every day, and rarely I get to surf twice a day, but often it's just when he has time. Sometimes it'll be every day, and sometimes it'll be once a week. Sometimes it'll be, I haven't surfed in 2 weeks.
Oh, really?
So it just depends. Yeah, it just depends how busy. He always really tries to make the effort to get me out there. So it just depends on how busy he is. So
it seems like,
yeah.
well, I mean, like I've had this experience. I think a lot of listeners have had the experience where you think, oh, I'm going to go on a surf trip and I'm going to surf every day. Well, once you end up wherever it is, rarely are you staying right on the beach where there's a wave right out front that's super consistent and always on.
Yep.
You often find yourself getting skunked for a week at a time, or you have to hop in a boat to get to the right spot for whatever. So while it sounds ideal, there are obviously other factors at play. I'm curious, though, to know how fast your learning curve has increased from the time you were living in San Diego to when you're kind of living the lifestyle that you're living now. Because it looks like you're charging and shredding.
Thanks. Yeah, I improved a lot from doing this. I think the main thing was just kind of polishing my style in my barrel riding. But yeah, but prior to Curran, sometimes I was surfing 6 hours a day.
Oh, okay.
But having said that, I probably should actually be a lot better than I am for how much I surfed over the last 10 years. But yeah, no, but it's so fun. And it was funny because after I had Curran, Rich says I actually surf better now than before. And I don't know if that's true, but I know that my passion for surfing went up after Curran because it was something that I didn't have at my fingertips whenever I wanted. And so, it's just like anything, when it kind of is just out of grasp, you tend to, I try to make the most of every session I have, whereas before I could be quite lazy in the surf. And also when you're around guests, you don't want to be like you're getting all the waves or trying to hassle guests. So I was quite laid back in the surf. And now I get out there and I'm like, okay, I got to get my 3 waves, and then
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, because that was going to be one of my questions too, was just, do you ever need a break? Do you ever need a reprieve from surf?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
There are times when I'm like, can we just go to Singapore for like a week and be in the city? And yeah, you do get burnt out. And being on an island too, where you can walk around it in 12 minutes and it's the same day in and day out, every day's the same. You wake up, you have your breakfast, you talk about the surf with the guests, same questions over and over and over.
Right.
You get the guests on the boat that want to go on the boat. You guide the guests that are at Loews that want to surf at Loews, and then you have lunch and you have a little rest, and then you do it all again in the afternoon, and then beautiful sunset, with all the guests, and that's pretty much your day in, day out.
Right.
The only thing that really changes here is the weather. So, and even then it's just, it's sunny or it's windy or it's rainy. Those are kind of the 3 options. So yeah, you get to the point where you're just like, get me off this island. I need something different. And that's when it's nice that we're only working 9 months a year, and then we have 3 months off.
Got it.
Because for 3 months of the year, there's pretty much no surf here. So,
what do you do about surfboards? Where do you get them and all that?
So what's funny, I have two surfboards from my friend Ben, actually, who works for Matt Bialis for Lost. I have two surfboards that are sitting in his office in San Clemente for a year now.
Oh my gosh.
That are paid for and waiting, and I'm pretty sure they're cured by now. So there was a couple guests that were meant to bring them out in April, and then of course everything happened and their trip got canceled. So, but yeah, normally what happens is we'll order a board. Most of my boards come from Rod Dahlberg in Australia, who's kind of a legend shaper out of Angari.
Yeah.
He used to shape for Aki. And he's been really good to us over the years. And then what happens is we'll do a bank transfer for what we owe him, and then he'll send the boards up to the World Safari's office in Mooloolaba, and then the World Safari's office will connect with the guests, and then we'll offer the guests free photos or something in exchange for them bringing the boards out for us.
Got it. A little bit of a hassle.
And it's important, like for me, because I can't just buy anybody's surfboard because I ride 5.4s. There's not many people that ride the kind of surfboards that I ride. So it's not like a guest is coming, I can be like, oh, can I buy your surfboard when you leave? Or, and they can go home and get another one.
Right.
So I really do have to get custom shaped boards for myself. So, but it's always worked out.
So what, you said 5.4, are they high performance shortboard thrusters, and how tall are you? And tell me about the boards themselves.
Yeah. So I'm about 5'4".
Okay.
And the boards are 5'4", 18, usually, 18 by, I'm not even sure what the dimensions are.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm terrible. And I never know the leaderage because Rod never writes the leaderage down. And that's actually something new since I lived in San Diego. It was never leaderage 10 years ago.
I know, me too. I mean, it's all a result of the shaping machine. That
Right.
people are tracking that stuff now, but I have no idea what volume I ride either. So
yeah. So I just tell Rod, oh, I need a new board, and this is how the last one went, and he shapes it for me. And yeah, normally I ride a thruster. He always gives me the 5-fin option, so I always have and for a while I was actually riding the quad with the little trailer fin. Mm-hmm. But then I went back to a thruster, and I've liked the thruster again. But when it gets a bit bigger, like when it's kind of maxed out at Loews, I'll ride a 5.9. And the photo that's on the front of that book that you had talked about, that's at PPAS actually. Yeah. When we worked at PPAS, and that board was a 5'10", I believe. So 5'10" is kind of like my big wave board.
That's an insane photo, by the way. Congrats on that cover shot.
Thank you.
How exciting is that?
I was really shocked. I had no clue that they were going to use that as the cover.
Really? How'd you find out?
I was just, well, it was posted. She posted it, and I was like, whoa, is that the cover?
They didn't reach out to you in advance to consult or get your thoughts?
Oh, well, yeah, like I knew that I was going to be in the book. She did an interview with me and everything, and we sent them all the photos, but I had no clue that they were going to use that for the cover. And I was quite shocked because there's some really amazing women in that book, Stephanie Gilmore and Paige Alms, and there's some really quite interesting and remarkable women. So I was just kind of dumbfounded and honored that they decided to go with that photo. So that was really
I'll be
cool.
honest, it's a gnarly shot. I mean, it's deserving. It's deserving to be on the cover.
Thanks. Yeah, that was the dropping swell at PPAS a few years back. It was like the year before Curran was born, and it was one of those really macking big swells that like not many people want to have anything to do with. And I didn't either. When it gets to be that size, it's a bit out of my range or my comfort zone. And then as the swell dropped, it was all rainy and windy, and I was on land, and Rich had called me and was like, oh, do you want to come out? Maybe the sunset session would be all right. And I was like, oh yeah, I might. So I cruised out, and it was just kind of windy and gross and weird, and a lot of the guys had started drinking and were ready to go in, so a big boatload of guys went in, And it was like the minute that they left the pass, the wind just calmed down and the sun came out and it went completely glassy and there was like a rainbow out, and it was like, oh, the angels were singing or whatever. And Rich was like, out there, and I was like, yeah. So I got out there, and this one of the PPAS locals, Mitchell, who's kind of a PPAS legend, he's from Hawaii, really nice guy, and he got out there and was just like, oh, it's yours, Ames, I'll back you up, and like paddled behind me, just in case I didn't get it. And I was like, I'm going this one, and just head down and went. And yeah, it ended up being one of the best waves I think I've ever gotten.
Really?
And yeah, and that whole session, it was just like perfect barrel after barrel after barrel after barrel. And PPAS was kind of my nemesis for a while because we worked there for like 4 seasons, I think. And I did my medial ligament there. Just learning how to get barreled on your backhand at PPAS was really difficult. It's a wave that a lot of goofy footers hate.
I was going to say, yeah, it's a hard backside wave to surf, looks like.
Yeah, especially because often the wind kind of comes kind of from behind it and chandeliers it. So it's quite a difficult wave. But I was really determined to kind of figure out how to backside tube ride. And Rich is a really good backside tube rider. He's like has really good technique. And so I just kept going until I finally figured it out. So, and then after that session, I just turned to Rich. I said, okay, you can get me pregnant now.
And it worked.
Yeah, and it worked. So
because he shot the photos too, right? I mean,
yeah, he was in the water shooting. Yeah.
Teamwork. Yeah. So I would imagine you've seen a lot of pros and amazing surfers just come through the various places that you've worked. What's some of the best surfing that you've ever seen in your life?
Hands down, Stephanie Gilmore at PBS, the first year we were there.
Really?
Yeah. She was the one I was in most awe of, I think, because she was so calm and stylish and she's a really friendly person, really sweet. So, that first season we were there, it was like the first week we were working there, and it was like this perfect swell that came, and Steph Gilmore flew in, and all these photographers flew in, and a couple other guys. I don't even remember who else was there, but and she said it was like the best PPAS she had ever seen. She's been there a few times. So yeah, that was really cool to watch. Did
you ever see where those photos or video ended up?
Of Stephanie's?
Yeah.
Well, one of the ones that my husband took ended up on the front cover of White Horses.
Oh, so I could look it up.
And yeah, and actually, Stephanie's video, Stephanie in the Water, she used one of Richard's photos too for the cover of her video.
From that same session.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll look it up and post it with today's or with this podcast chat.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The photo that I'm talking about, that was the cover of White Horses, she's coming out of a barrel and her smile is just, it's like the most blissful. It was like at the end of the day and the sun was setting and the wind was offshore, and it's just one of those iconic photos that, just epitomizes the beauty and the contentedness of coming out of a barrel.
Yeah.
Perfect PPAS. So
yeah, she personifies that, I think, often.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Laura Never was another really inspiring when she was charging. She came during a big swell and just absolutely charged it.
Yeah, I think I've seen some of that footage. So where do you go from here? What does the next 5 and 10 years of your life look like? Is this lifestyle sustainable for the long term?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like I said, we always said we were going to do this for as long as we loved it more than we hated it. Because you have your good days and your bad days, just like anywhere. But yeah, we have our house in New Zealand. We're really lucky because Rich bought that 20 years ago for a song, and then Raglan actually just pricing went through the roof in Raglan, and so we have a little house there, and we don't have a mortgage, and so we get rent off of that, and So the goal is to build another house on that piece of land, and then to kind of live off of the rents, and maybe here, maybe in Indo, who knows. We don't really have a plan. So,
but that's I mean, it's a really fortunate situation that you're in to be able to even have that backup plan and property. Yeah. And New Zealand obviously is amazing. So it's a great option.
I think that that's actually kind of what allows us to be able to live this lifestyle without too much of a concern for the future, because we're like, okay, well, we always have the house, without a mortgage. So we're not worried about, having to pay a mortgage or pay off a house or anything like that, right. Which a lot of people don't have. So yeah, but we're not New Zealand residents, and we're getting to that, like, I'm 42 this month, and Rich is going to be turning 50 in February. So it's not like, we can just go and try to get residency because we're in our young 20s and they want, Yeah. So I don't know if we'll ever be able to live full time in New Zealand, or if we're going to be just kind of doing the nomadic life for quite a while. But we don't ever see ourselves living in America or England. So I don't know.
Do you get to spend enough time with your family back home, and have they had adequate time with Curran?
No, my mom would say no. We're really, like I said, we're really lucky that we can video chat with her, in the mornings and the evenings. She's able to, and it's cool because even last year when Curran was 2, he'd be like, "Hi, Nana," and he knew exactly who she was, and there wasn't any like, "Oh, who's that? Who's this weird person?" That I'm videoing with. He'll often say, "Oh, I want to tell Nana about this," or "I want to tell Granny," which is Richard's mom, about that, and "Oh, I can't wait to go gardening," because they both visit us in New Zealand when we go back to New Zealand.
Okay, good.
And Richard's mom's come here quite a few times to the Maldives because she's able to. She's retired, and so we've had that we've been really lucky to have them come visit us. But yeah, we've never been to England, and we've only been to America once since Curran's been born. So it's a bit easier for them to come to us than the other way around.
Yeah, of course. Well, this has been such a fascinating conversation and full of so many insights. I appreciate you staying up late after Curran went to bed and making time for it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thrilled.
Yeah. Wait, where do you live anyway?
Newport Beach, California. Southern California.
You're in Newport. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where in Orange County did you grow up?
In Irvine.
Yeah, that's funny that I randomly mentioned Irvine.
Yeah. I was like, were you talking to my mom?
No, that's funny. So, it's like the epitome of, I don't know, developed suburbia, basically.
Oh, and what's funny is my mom actually, she was a single mom with 3 kids, and she chose Irvine because it was considered the safest city in the whole of the United States for 10 years running. And, we had to be latchkey kids, and so she chose Irvine specifically for the safety value and the kind of knowledge that, we were going to be okay if we were, hanging outside and whatnot.
Yeah. And I think
so that's how she
still is.
Irvine.
It still is kind of safe like that. It's actually Will Ferrell's hometown too.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. He's the most famous Irvine resident.
Irviner.
Exactly. How do people get a hold of you? I mean, there's enough listeners that take surf trips all the time. What's the best way for them to get a hold of you and benefit from your guys' services there?
They can find Richard on Instagram, Richard_Kotch, Kotch, and I'm Vite_CSEA_Mumma, MUMMA. I have my account private just because I don't like trolls, because I have my son, But if you look like a real person, I'll accept you.
Yeah.
So,
awesome.
But yeah, and they can also get in touch with us via the Richard's photography email, which is info@richardkotchphotography.com, or they can contact the Adirondack Resorts, and there's an email address for the surf portion of it, which is what Richard does. So
cool. I'll make sure to post all of that stuff in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
Of course. Well, hey.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks so much, David.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy.
Have a good day.
I will.
Okay.